Okay, good evening, everybody. I call this meeting of the Prosper Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and the notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Ms. Mary Lou Smith, would you lead us in our invocation, please?
Yes, sir. Dear Heavenly Father, we come here this evening, Lord, to do work for the good of the schools in your name. Lord, stay with us and guide us with your presence so that we may make decisions regarding the direction of Prosper SD, its children, family, employees. Lord, we praise you for the wonderful and exciting beginning of the school year. Thank you so much for our awesome teachers and staff who put their hearts and countless hours into the lives of our children. Lord, as we approve the tax rate this evening, help us be good stewards of the resources that you have blessed us richly with. Lord, it is in your beautiful, precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda. We'll have a little report on student outcomes and facilities from Dr. Bradley in a second, but if y'all don't know if y'all have any questions about minutes or Yowza. Shift control. See the 14,252, that's our new number. Of course, that's light. I think we're 14,260 something. 71, excuse me. Since the 5 days that you've had. Yeah, it's just every day. Every day. Shift. Control. There we go. And then we have everything progressing. This is the one over West Ridge, which is south of 380. And this is the one down Fish Trap on Legacy. Just looks like a big mud pile right now when you drive by it. It's, and then you can see Hayes taking more shape every day. Stadium has some parking.
Plenty of parking.
We'll have a helipad to airlift the fans into the stadium when it opens. The natatorium. Rock Hill. And then this is, let's try to do this again. Go control. And this is just the accountability system. The latest report card of their madness from Austin. And then
And next year it comes out campus level, right?
they'll assign a grade to campuses and district next year.
Right.
Or this year, but it'll come out next year. And then, now back to, Dr. Bradley's gonna give us a little report.
All right. Good evening. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown tonight of, as we've been focusing on student outcomes. This one's a little different, but what we're going to talk about tonight is just the idea that this board and in years gone by has committed to spending INS dollars to prevent the spending of M&O dollars, because that's what we spend on kids. The INS money certainly to build these facilities is important, but we want to make sure that we're spending those dollars wisely so the M&O budget is protected as best we can. And so what we've done is just run some numbers tonight that I wanted to show to you quickly. And I really just picked on the elementaries right now because they are the easiest to compare because of the similar floor plans. And so while we've made minor adjustments to the floor plan over the years, essentially Windsong is not that much different than Folsom. But what is different is how we went about constructing these buildings. And so I wanted to give you kind of a apples to apples comparison on what's going on. And so if you look at 2004 and 2007, Folsom and Baker were built primarily with CMU or concrete masonry units. And so that was the standard practice of construction at the time. But starting at Cockrell, we moved to ICF, the insulated concrete forms, because part of the reason we did that is because it was building it in the winter, and you can throw ICF up easier in the winter than you can CMU. And so in Cockrell, only the classroom wing is ICF, the rest is CMU. And that became our new standard, and so you see in Light Farms, it's all ICF, Hughes is all ICF, and Windsong is all ICF. The other change that we had at those buildings is that outside, all of the lighting became LED. So at that point, it became worth it, if you will, to make sure that the outside lights on the building and in the parking lot were LED. If you fast forward to these last two, so Spradley and Boyer, their difference is that they are completely LED. It'll be interesting to roll forward a year and see how much difference that makes on this floor plan. Of course, there's still ICF. And then the other unique thing we have is that at Spradley, not only did we get to construct a storm shelter down there, but we also had the privilege of putting a cool roof system in that the city of Frisco requires, which was quite expensive. And so it'll be interesting to see, again, with those adjustments, if these buildings truly perform much more efficiently, if we get our money back on those type of investments. And so over on the right, I just wanted to show you that it's about as apples to apples as we can get. There is one outlier on gas provider, and that's Hughes is Atmos gas, but the rest of it's CoServe. And then Grayson, Collin Co-op, and CoServe are very similar in their pricing, so it's not like one is way off compared to the other. And so what we're looking at is actual cost, not usage. I want to be clear about that, and the numbers in the charts I'm going to show you is just the overall cost. If you add electric cost and gas cost together, what you see. And so this first chart that you see just shows over the months. If you look up at the very top, that darker blue line is the Folsom usage, and you will see that it being the first building, the older building, a little bit larger in a couple of areas, it is almost always the most expensive building. All right, no matter what month of the year, whether it's cold, hot, whatever. And then you see down at the bottom, Windsong tends to be the lowest number. And this is electricity costs from August of 2017 until just July of 2018. The interesting thing about this chart that I wanted to note as well is that in this moment, to be as apples to apples as we can be, all of these had the joy of 3 portables on their campus. All right, so that is configured into this cost. So we were also heating and cooling 6 portable classrooms, but every one of these campuses had that same situation. And so that is, electric and gas costs combined, electric and gas costs, and then I looked specifically just at gas costs to see what's going on there, and you can see that Folsom is by far the largest user of that. Again, that seems to track. I mean, the graph there shows obviously the uptick in the winter, so it's they're the outlier on cost, but we see that the usage goes up across the board on that. And then I just looked at 2 years combined. There is 1 month overlap here, but you see that this chart nicely stair steps the difference in where ICF came into play, and then where ICF and LED came into play, right? And then this chart, I mean, you know how you can, with statisticians like to make things appear a certain way. It really makes it look like Windsong almost costs nothing, all right? It's not exactly true the way that chart shows. I mean, they come in about $55,000, And in this first school year, although you wouldn't believe it now, but in the first school year that Winsong was open, it was not busting at the seams with over 1,000 kids. There were less kids there. Mr. Miller has long since forgot those days, but there was a time when it was not actually above capacity. And so the costs have always been a little bit lower at Winsong than they have at Hughes, even though they opened at the same time. But you see, just in an apples to apples comparison, in 1 year time span, Folsom was $91,000 in energy costs, and Winsong was about 55. And so I think that demonstrates clearly that there is a wise investment in some of the expenditures we have when you look especially over a 20-year time period and you're saving over $30,000 a year. This is the next year. This is the year when they all had 3 portables at each campus. And again, you see that Folsom is definitely the highest, then Baker, then Cockrell. We do have Hughes going up a little bit there. Some of that was due to the gas cost of them being Atmos versus co-serve gas, but maybe just, I don't know. Maybe Miss Johns likes the building a little warmer. I don't know. I'm just gonna I don't know. We're still looking into that, all right? But you can see that we're still having a pretty much a nice stair step of what's going on there. And so again, I think even though ICF is a little more costly up front and LED is a little more costly up front, I think we are seeing the benefit. I think it is a wise investiture of funds over time that we can say to our stakeholders, we're definitely thinking about this as we look into it. And then the big number I wanted you to see was this. When Prosper High School was constructed, we knew that there was going to be a large amount of watering and irrigation to go there. There's a huge, massive number of trees and green space there, and so the district spent about $550,000 to put a well in there, and it's obviously a large amount of money that goes in to doing something like that. And some would say, why would you put that in there? Well, here's the thing about that. In a normal month, when the well is operating, the well cost us about $30 for energy costs. And then we pump the water up and we, obviously irrigate almost 100 watering stations. So it's, make it just run all the time. In July of this year, the well went down. And we've had some issues with that well over time. And the original architect has had to come back and foot the bill on some things. But in this moment, I just wanted you to know that was the irrigation bill when we were using city water at Prosper High School this summer. And so in 1 month, I think it clearly demonstrates that the well is worth it. If you're talking about $30 a month versus $28,830 a month, you do that a couple months, you've more than made up your $500,000 investment. And that, we're talking 10 years after the fact, right? Now, certainly not every month would be a $28,000 month. We have had a couple of other months where it went down in January or it went down and the bill was $3,000 or $4,000. But I think it's pretty well known that we're going to experience some hot summers around here and it can be dry. And so over a 10-year period now, that well has produced all but just a couple of months. And you see clearly how much money it would cost to not have that well. And so we have done the same thing at Rogers Middle School. We have a well that functions wonderfully well. And then we have it at Hayes Middle School, and at Rock Hill we will have a well as, so it'll be a good situation that will pay off over time. The cost of the well has gone up. I think the well at Rock Hill cost about $800-something thousand. So, obviously there's some inflation there over time. But again, I think the well is probably a wise investment when you look at that number. And then the last thing I wanted to show you was just that there's 2 companies really right now that I've been in discussions with, just as we continue to look forward, as some of our buildings get a little bit older, what are some things that we could do? 4 of our buildings, if you will, if you count administration, support services, Reynolds Middle School, and Rucker, are not on CoServe or Grayson County. And so we actually purchase energy through another entity for them. And so I've been talking to a company called Solar One. They're one of many. I've just been using them just to kind of get a ballpark figure. And there's some interesting things going on with solar power right now. Used to, it was cost prohibitive. And you just, I mean, you could be green, but you were going to pay for it, and the chances you were going to get your money back was not great until it was an extended period of time. And so Solar One has run the numbers for us and looked at our current all-in rate, what we're paying for energy today, the TDSP plus our contract rate on top of that. And they've run the numbers for us. And so I just wanted to show you two slides. These are, again, just ballpark numbers and why we're having the conversation, but something that we may bring to you in the future. And that is what most districts do, and there's been several districts around here that have gone into a contract with Solar One. Solar One's providing the solar panels on the roof of a building. They charge you nothing up front, right? But then you, of course, have to sign a 25-year agreement with them to purchase power from them at a reduced rate, okay? And basically the number you see in front of you is, hey, over this amount of time, we think over 25 years we could save you $360,000. Well, it'd be great to save $360,000 over 25 years. It's probably not a huge amount when you're talking about what's going on here. But again, we only have 4 buildings that we could qualify for currently. But as I began to discuss this with them, I said, well, I realize that most districts are forced into this situation, but we might just, if solar power is as great as you say it is, if these solar panels are just going to sit on the roof for 40 years and produce, and all we got to do is wash them off every now and then, which is what they claim, all right, then I said, what if we just purchased them outright? What if we just went and bought them? What would it do? And so that would not be a good situation except for this. Right now, energy companies like Encore are offering huge rebates because they don't want to have to produce more energy, right? They can't keep up with the demand in some situations. So it would actually cost us approximately $580,000 to purchase the solar panels for this, but the Encore rebate would be almost $240,000. And that's a government rebate combined with an Encore rebate, which means that the net cost comes down to $340,000. And so you can see that they've estimated that we would get our return on investment at about 8 years. Well, we figured on the water wells that it would be about a 10-year return on investment. And so these numbers aren't firm. I can't guarantee you that's exactly what would happen if we do that, but I just wanted to put that in front of you that we get a lot of questions. I've gotten a lot of questions over the last year or so. Hey, what are you doing to be green? What are you doing to be efficient? What are some things that you're doing? And so this is one of the ways we've looked into a possibility of using a green energy situation. And then the last thing, Schneider Electric is a company that has come in and worked with us and done some evaluation of our buildings, and they have offered some solutions to help us get a little more efficient. One of the things that there's 1,000 companies out there that want to do this, right? Come in and tell you how you can save $1 here, but one of the things I like about Schneider is they don't just they're not just looking, hey, to save you money on this, but they also have a huge curriculum piece and investing in STEAM education. And so the question was, hey, can we save some money, but also in the process of saving money, can we also educate our kids about what we're doing? And so the information that they've provided here, I'm not going to go through all this tonight, but we've been in conversations with them. Matt Lombardo is here tonight, but we've talked about some net zero waste, some how to engage our students in STEAM education, reducing our energy profile through some of them just obvious things, initiatives to help turn off the lights and things of that nature, but then also just replacing, Prosper High School. We don't know what the cost would be right now, but to replace every light in that building would be a huge situation, but none of them are LED. And if we did that, we know there would be savings there, but if we wait and do that with our maintenance department and replace them one by one, that'd be a 20-year project probably versus just having someone come in and do it quickly. And so we've pursued several different things with them. But again, one of the reasons that I've enjoyed speaking with them is that we talk about how we could educate our kids in the process of this. And so I just wanted to report to you tonight that you've had a history of making decisions that have saved us money on the M&O side, but we're continuing that conversation moving forward. So we're going to be as green as we can in our new buildings, but also are looking to see how can we be more efficient as some of our facilities age. Right?
It's pretty cool you were talking about Windsong, and I remember we were concerned about the energy efficiency with the high ceilings and the windows and all that, thinking that the bill would be exorbitant. But to see the numbers,
Sure.
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And we put 1,085 kids in there today, so. Got that too.
Suck up the energy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bradley.
Your approval.
Yep.
Yes, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve.
All right, Deborah Smith, the second. Second, Jana. All right, all in favor? Here we go. Very good.
The next round of waivers, and the recommendation tonight is to basically approve these waivers and the waivers on the horizon, and we'll keep you notified, just keep you updated on what those are between now and March. Does that cut, Mr. Race, does that cut off? March. In March, in terms of anything that we have to turn into a TEA.
Largest classroom is at
26, is that what I saw? Is that correct?
Yeah, there it is.
Yes. You said those classes have aides, right?
There is an aide that has been hired to help and to do small groups. Mr. Miller can speak better. Yeah, they're pulling small groups from the classrooms.
Our aide is working with all 8 teachers, pulling small groups, whether it's math or science or reading, whether he's working in conjunction with each teacher for best to support wherever it might be throughout the day.
So one aide for all those classes?
And he's this close to being a certified teacher, so. That's December.
Well, the teachers they had these last year as well, and so, they're very strong teachers, and Mr. Miller already knew coming in, that third grade was already going to be one of those higher grades, and, so the strongest teachers are the ones really taking care of these kids.
Yeah. Again, this is a state thing. There is zero magical about 22 to 1. It's about the teacher in the classroom. The number is irrelevant. We've added, and Mr. Miller and his staff, they're just rock stars over there. They just, oh, another one? Let me have them. I mean, they really just do an amazing job with it. But whether it's 1, 2, or 3, it's always going to be driven by makeup of students and the situation it's in. It's not a one-size-fits-all in terms of this formula mathematically equals this. It just depends. So as long as the teachers are confident and Mr. Miller's confident, then we'll forge ahead with what we have.
So they're evaluating on a need-based if we need to add more aides
Always,
as we go.
certainly.
Because you have concerns about behavioral issues. I mean, just packing that many kids into an environment,
Is there a
Been there.
behavioral
Well,
specialist
now,
on
with
that
that
campus?
said, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is there a behavioral specialist on that campus?
Not full-time.
Well, we don't have.
Not full-time.
No, we have
I didn't know.
a few that, but, every secondary teacher does chuckle. Just a little bit, because they have 30, 35, and don't act like there's not discipline problems with the high school
Right.
class.
but just younger kids have higher needs generally. or things that-
Okay. I'll let-
We get to tie their shoes, all this stuff, so I mean, other things that-
But to your
Different
point, that's evaluated as we go, and if more people need to be added. It's just, there is no place to add a classroom, so that's not an option. Unless we start telling Winsong families that are moving in, yeah, you're not going to that one, we're busing you to another one, down the road.
But just make sure that we know that if you have any needs.
Yeah, that's
Because
my
that just
concern.
concerns me for so many, that you're taking care of, that those teachers are taken care of, so that we can retain them, those great teachers. You know, so.
We talk all the time. So,
Okay. That requires an action item.
make a motion.
Mr. Mays Davenport. We need a second. All right, thank you, Bill. All in favor? Great. It's unanimous. So you will just report to us as we have waivers between now and March, okay?
And if we add, I'll just update y'all if we need to add X person or 2
Got it.
people or 3 people or whatever else.
Okay.
Mr. Craig?
Tonight, we're gonna report over the end of the year data, figures financially. These are not audited. Of course, all auditors will be here in November to give us the final, numbers for the year end of 2017, 2018. These are preliminary numbers. First, tonight, we're gonna discuss the investment by banks. As you can see, we have 5 different financial institutions. Independent Bank is our primary depository contract with. As you can see that over the last year, the amount's the same. As you can see in Lone Star, Lone Star is where we have all of our bond funds located at, and we keep them there for a reason. For arbitrage calculations over the period of time, we keep all of our bond funds in one institution. As you can see, the total general fund up there, top right column, corner there, we ended up with almost $88 million in cash compared to this year. Last year was 76. Remember, as you'll see this in a few minutes, we were overpaid in 2016-17 by the state for almost $12 million. And that's why that 76 should have been almost like 64. As well as this year, we were actually underpaid by $4 million, a little less than $4 million, and that figure should have been 90 million. So this is the investment by funds, tells you where we stand in the general fund, as well as the debt service. Our debt service went from 6.9 million to 10.6 this year, and this coming year we expect that to even grow in fund balance in the debt service. As you can see with the bond funds, is going up and down because of the bond sales that we have every year in the springtime. This $200 million, 225 I believe, is now 176 million just over the last 4 months. We're averaging almost $16 million a month in payments for all of our projects. Based upon that, in the next 12 months, this 176 million will be down to zero. Total revenue, we came in this year total of $104 million. Our budget was 100, so we're $4 million above what we expected. As you can see in our local revenue, we went from 63 million in tax collection to 80 million, and you can see the drop in the state and revenue because of the overpayment and the underpayment as well.
That number does not include any ASETAR number.
Oh yes, sir, thank you.
Okay.
These numbers still do not include the ASETAR payment that we received in 2017, 2018. As you can see that if it wasn't overpaid, underpaid, you would see probably that the local revenue would be 70% or less, and the federal state money should be around 25%. This gives you the current tax collections by month, and we ended up this month in August with a little higher than we normally do, which is normal, but we actually, in this next slide here, we actually received a little over $500,000 in the month of August from rollback, which helped our balance compared to the year before, from almost 6.4 million last year to almost over $2 million this year in rollback that we received. Our expenses came in a little less than what we projected for the year end. I believe in last month's reporting, we projected the total expenses to be around almost a little less than $95 million. So we were less than that, but it's still a 14% increase from the prior year. As you can see, the biggest increase is in your payroll from 66 million to 77 million. This shows you the expenses by function, by object code, which you can see last year payroll represented 81.5% of the total expenditures. This year it was 82.5. And then you can see the comparison of the two. Again, the change, one of the largest change is the bottom two down there. Chapter 41 increased to over $1 million, 1.2 million or 1.1 million this year, compared to almost 300,000 last year. We had several different capital projects going on last year, which represents 4% of our expenses last year in capital projections, our projects, compared to 2.7. And this year we ended up 93.6 million. Our budget was a tad over 100 million. Expenses by function, as you can see, the bottom is the instructional functionality, where 98% was spent last year compared to 95%. As you can see, they're very, very close, up and down there. Last year we spent 95% to budget compared to 92% this year. Our food service, as you can see, this slide, it shows our revenue went to, actual revenue was 4.5 million. The actual expenses was 4.2 million. We actually received almost $300,000 in net cash flow compared to last year of 322. We actually had some expenses in July and August of this 2017 when, with the purchase of the food truck that we purchased, as well as some other expenses that came in, and otherwise we would have been at the 300, and we would have been anyway, because it included payroll as well.
We've nicknamed the food truck the Phantom. We haven't seen it yet.
Really?
So it's coming.
It's coming.
I was gonna ask how it was going.
It's
I should.
It's not going well. The only good news is the kids hadn't missed it. I mean, that's the only thing I can say. They hadn't missed it yet. So we're hoping for October.
Are we wrapping it in that cool wrap at the band?
Yeah, we're gonna wrap. We don't know. We're playing with the design right now.
Very cool.
The debt service fund, as you can see, revenues were, was over 35 million. Our expenses are 31.9 million. So we are definitely increasing our fund balance, which when you're growing as much as in our debt as we are, this is something that we need to have. Last is the athletic program. This is the activities that actually happens at the events, revenue versus expenses. And these next few slides will show us our construction projects. Quickly, we, as of July, at the end of July, we spent all of the 125 million that we received 14 months prior. So it took us 14 months to spend the 125, and I remember 2 years ago when we were looking for 125 million, I think I was talking to Dr. Watkins, I don't think we can spend it in 24 months. Well, it's spent in 14 months instead of 24. So
I'm not sure that needs to be our battle cry, but I mean, that's,
That's right.
yeah. As you can see, elementary 8, Boyer Elementary, we have 9% left. As the construction, y'all might have noticed with some of your correspondence, the project is completed, and the only thing that we have a balance paid back to the Poe Construction is their 5% retainage. So other than that, both their projects for elementary were under budget. I don't know the specific numbers, but I do know that there's another 5% that's on the table. But both projects was over $1 million, or right at $1 million. Same way as Bradley. As you can see, the balance is 9% and 5% is Poe Construction. Middle school, Hayes Middle School coming in. We have spent almost over 50% now, so it's over halfway. Total construction cost has been 30.3 million. As well as the stadium, we're at 34% in progress, 66% balance. And out of the total 51.9 million, we have spent 21. And that's it for the financial reports. Any other questions?
Thanks, Rusty. Any other questions? All right, we need a motion to approve the financial investment tax report for August 2018. I guess there's no budget amendments either.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Jana. Second by Mays. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. You are. You're chucking and shotting.
You have the, you can see the INS history there, and then where we are on the M&O part. So to fund the budget that was approved
Last month, you're right.
it would take, to keep this at 50 cents and to keep this at $1.17.
Okay, that's definitely an action needing a motion.
Make a motion to approve the tax
All right, Mary Lou, thank you. A second? Oh, Deborah, I think she beat you, Michelle. All in favor? Okay. Another tax rate.
This is, well, we've started,
Yes,
and it's, but we need a resolution, which I don't know if is.
Is this has to do because of the federal monies or something?
Well, it's just, when there's what could be deemed as a gift of public funds.
Yeah,
The
okay.
board has to, recognize it as.
Got it.
Public interest in terms of safety and those kinds of things,
Yeah.
which is what this resolution does. So anytime that we do something like that,
Made
it's real
s-
particular on
Made sense.
what you pay for people.
Right, right.
That's classifies by definition.
So the
as a
idea is
gift.
that the lunchtime, our officers will be more inclined to wanna
Yeah, I
stay
mean,
on
it's-
campus.
We've had a handful, we hadn't had a lot of takers on this yet.
Yeah.
I'm sure their schedules will dictate. I was sort of surprised, when I was talking to the, Prosper Police Chief. You'd think they have a zillion on duty, but during the day, they have about 4 on duty. During the school day, so it's, the pool isn't that deep, but we've we've extended out to the sheriff's department, state troopers, and City McKinney, and, city slot. So we've done it with everybody, not just the town of
Okay,
Prosper.
got it.
So we'll see how this rolls forward, but it does require action, by the board to be able to allow us to do it. Also going.
Waiting on the food truck.
Just waiting on the food truck as well. So I recommend that you approve this resolution as presented.
Okay, we need a motion for that. It makes good sense, I think. Anybody? Let you have that, Michelle. All right, thank you, Bill. All in favor? Good, very good.
And this is,
Oh, yes.
yeah.
We got a little bit ahead of ourselves.
A little bit, but this is to officially name, and on a time yet to be determined, but the school, in the Liliana development, the Sam Johnson Elementary School. That's a action item.
Now, and you haven't heard back from,
No,
okay, from
so,
them.
that means, I guess that's at least they're thinking about it.
Okay, so we could still see a change, perhaps?
Yeah.
Okay.
The change potentially could be location of the school.
Right.
It's still gonna be Sam Johnson
Right,
Elementary School.
right. But it may not be in
It
Liliana.
might not be in Lily, it could be in another development. We'll just sort of see how that goes, so.
Get a bidding. Get a
But
bidding war.
it's still, it is naming a future elementary school, Sam Johnson Elementary
A
School.
future one, there you go.
No location.
Location and time to be determined.
Yes.
Even though it's stated on here, located in the, it doesn't mean that that's where it will be.
It doesn't for sure mean that's where it's gonna be.
Yeah.
It could be in there,
Could be.
could be. And that was the initial plan of the developer.
Right.
So we're trying to be sensitive to the congressman
Yes,
and
absolutely.
trying to be creative on this thing. So, really, it's, the ball's in their court
Yeah.
on whether or not they wanna make any adjustment in terms of timelines.
So we need to make a motion.
Yeah. And for those of you that don't, we went to an event with him in last month? In August, yeah. So, much more than honoring him much more than just his long tenure as a congressman. He's an amazing individual. POW in Vietnam for 7 years, and he's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Okay, so we need a motion for that. All right, Mr. Beavers, make a motion.
Beavers?
Second, Mary Lou. All in favor? Okay, great.
And this is,
Yes.
the final year of the extension of the original agreement, for network cabling. I don't know if you have any questions. I think Mr. Devalesco is, he's behind the screen over there. If you have any questions about that, but next year we'll go out with a new RFP, because this is really an every year thing that we've got to deal with. This will be the final year of this agreement. I
Okay.
recommend that you approve based on his recommendation.
Mhm.
Is this the third year?
What year?
3 years ago, we produced an RFP for 3 years that will be renewed on yearly basis, just in case anything will change.
Right.
The price, the cost has been good to us for the last 2 years, so we want to extend to the third and last one. Next year, with new cabling technologies and things, we will produce a new RFP to really negotiate pricing and cost for us. But this will be the last for these 3 years.
So we're just approving the third year of an agreement that's already been awarded. Yeah, understand. Okay? Buddy?
Motion to approve.
All right, Jan? Mays? All in favor?
Okay.
21. Yes, 12. Gotta be.
I
Look
was,
at that.
I was gonna say, there's something, my fingers got a little,
One and two in there somewhere.
12 classroom portable.
Thank you.
I
Man,
apologize for
that's a
that.
whole wing.
Could probably use the 21 classroom portable, but it's 12 classroom portable. And, I think we're asking for a not to exceed number of $775. You see the cost of the portable, that's a replica of what we have over there, and it'll go right next to it.
Don't we have, isn't the one there at 10?
It's 12.
It's 12?
It's actually 11. We have an office and a work area. as
Okay.
One, but we don't need that in the.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we love it?
I mean,
Do we
based
love
on
it?
Portable.
the only bad thing about it, like I've said, is getting from point A to point B.
Yeah.
I mean, when it's raining outside and it's nasty, that's never, anytime you're outside the building, it's not a good thing.
All of the feedback from the teachers at PHS is that they want to be in there. So you get to control your AC a little better, and there's
Get a little distant.
I mean, it's a lot less chaotic in the hallway over there. So yes, I think the feedback has been positive.
Yeah.
Have we had any issues? Any student issues going from A to B?
Not that I know of.
Significant?
I mean, if you go out there, I was out there today in between class periods. I mean, it's 11 classrooms out there right now, so there is a large amount of kids traversing that parking lot through the crosswalk that we have, and then not to mention the NPF normally has kids coming and going as well. But every day I've been out there, we've had at least one staff member at the door on this side, one staff member at the door on this side. Our K-9 unit offices out of that portable as well. So we have an assistant principal officing in that portable. So there's a little more vigilance there than,
So I was gonna say, I know our kids are awesome, but the occasional discipline problem, you gotta go to the office.
right,
So
get lost on the way in, yes.
Yeah.
So
It's a long
Mr.
trek.
Toth,
Trust
yeah,
you to go to the
yes.
yeah.
Mr. Toth is officing in there, and that's a reason why we put that. We don't need to replicate that in the next one. But we do have an office and a work area for a copier and a break room, so our teachers don't have to go back in the building.
Great.
I mean, it's as nice as a portable can be. I mean, that. I don't wanna overplay it too much. It's-
Right.
Any concerns from parents? Have we had any?
Not that have worked their way up to us. I mean, too many kids, that's the overriding concern at the high school,
Yeah,
you know, it's,
got it.
this'll let us get it in place really early on, and we're trying to, and you'll see with a number of purchases, with furniture, all kinds of things to try to move our timelines up more aggressively, so we're not, scrambling at the start of school, because as it worked out, you know, we got some stuff stuck on a boat, and I don't know what body of water, you know, right up to the start of school, so, we're trying to start our processes earlier on that, so we can jump to a plan B if we need to in time.
This won't be used this year,
No,
so
no.
next,
Yes,
by
ma'am.
the time we get it back.
Yes,
ma'am. Okay,
we'll
yes.
get it in and
Yes,
set
ma'am.
it.
Good question. Yes, this isn't a this year thing. It is to make sure it's ready to go for next year.
Perfect.
What's the anticipated length of time that we'll have to use that PHS? Yeah, I mean, are we thinking we're gonna have to move it somewhere else? Should it be moved to a middle school, or is it just specific for PHS?
No, it's, those things are all mobile, but, I would expect that those to stay there, even with the opening of Rock Hill, especially if we're able to, do some level of grandfathering with senior
Right.
students and those kinds of things. So PHS will still maintain a pretty healthy enrollment, even with the opening of Rock Hill, initially. So the recommendation is for 775 as a number not to exceed.
Okay,
It is.
asking for a motion. All right, Michelle, thank you.
I'll second.
Second from Deborah Smith. All in favor? Okay,
And we have another that didn't make it to your packet, but we
Okay.
posted it,
oh yes, I did see that.
which is the,
Big calculators.
yeah.
Just see that in your
we
packet.
had three separate purchases. I think the amount is 56. Let me see here. $56,266.65. I recommend that you approve the, purchases for additional calculators in the
Okay.
ISD.
Motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Jana. Anybody else second? Mays seconds. All in favor? Mas calculadoras.
So remind me, the 50,000 is a limit before it has to go to the board?
Yes, sir, even if it's done in a bunch of small pieces.
Is that a state mandated,
No.
is it us?
That's y'all.
So is that something we may review
Yes, sir.
to see if we need to
Boards
give
do
up
differently.
$50,000?
Yes, sir.
All boards
Okay.
do
Yes,
it
sir.
differently.
Yes, sir.
I don't, seems to me it needs to be higher than that.
Yeah, could be.
Okay, so executive session, get a.
Yeah, we need a
motion.
motion for executive session.
I'll make a motion.
All right, Bill.
Second?
All right, Jana. All in favor? Okay, we will go into executive session. We will come back. We actually came back last time and we had somebody here, so we conducted the rest of our meeting here. So, it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
You're all welcome to experience this.
Yeah, you're all welcome to stay.
You're all welcome to stay and experience it.
GPA Emmy Awards are on.